Well, good afternoon, everybody. What's happening, everybody? Friday, March 21st, 2025. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning into Loud Majority Live here on LFA TV. I got a big show for you guys today. You guys see the headline. The new Snow White movie bombs at the box office. Absolutely bombs at the box office. And we're going to talk about exactly why. We're going to talk about why. And many people think I'm going to critique the woke. I'm going to say that the movie was beyond woke, and that's why Snow White and the Seven Ambiguous People. No. That's not why it sucked. That's not why it bombed. We're going to get into exactly why. Also, Donald Trump continues to break up the Department of Education. Sort of. We're going to go over exactly what he can do, exactly what he can't do. Exactly what he can do, exactly what he can't do. Tim Walz continues to be fat and old and suck as he threatens to fight a MAGA. He threatens to fight MAGA in a staged fight. I don't really understand that one. But hey, nothing about Tim Walz is real. That's why he's not the vice president. Also, Joy Reid thinks that America fought Canada in the War of 1812. I don't know what that's all about, but we're going to laugh at her and Don Lemon as they have a unemployed lesbian off. We're going to have some fun with that. And at the very end of the show, we're going to introduce a new segment here. It's going to be called F Around and Find Out Fridays, where we show you a very fat woman with thick ankles who can't run as she tries to attack a Trump supporter on a New York City subway. It's just great. It's just great. Before we get started, though, guys, hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. Where's my live chat? Boom. Let's get that live chat up onto the screen. How's everybody doing today? Watch it all across the place. Steve Davis, how are you? Jeanette, how are you? Janet from another planet, what's happening over there? Watching on X. Hello, Marissa. Why is that over there? Hello, Marissa, how are you? John Yarder. Shout out to everybody watching, wherever it is you may be watching from. Apparently you did. You're on time today, Marissa. You're on time. Deb, how are you? Kev, can you take live calls today? No, I can't. I'm working on doing that. I'm working on that. I can't take live calls at the moment. I would love to. I would love to get all of your takes on the new Snow White. I would love to get all of your takes on it. Let's see. Who else is in here? What's up? Watching from Oregon. Dawn, how are you? Pennsylvania in the house. Shout out to everybody watching wherever it is. Make sure you guys are hitting the thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. This show, as always, is brought to you by Old Glory Bank.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, head on over to oldglorybank.com. Check out their competitive rates for their certified deposits. You guys know I'm a big believer in that. And while this is definitely not financial advice, it's what I do. Got to make sure I say that for the lawyers. Guys, go to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. What's up, Andrew? What's up, G5ers? How are you? Very good stuff as we are locked, as we are loaded here. So let's dive in. Because the new Snow White reboot hit theaters with an abysmal Rotten Tomatoes ratings. As of Thursday afternoon, the film had gotten a rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes with a score of 47%. 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, some might ask, Kevin, how is it possible that a story that has been in the popular lexicon for more than like 200 years could possibly get that low a rating? Now, many people believe it has to do with the star, Rachel Ziegler, who is insufferable and actually a really shitty actress. Some may say it is the widespread boycott of organizations like Disney. Some may say it is the wokeness of the film. However, I am here to let you all know it is none of those things. It is absolutely none of those things on why Snow White sucks. I'm going to show you guys the trailer for the new Snow White, and then we're going to break it down because the wokeness, the annoyingness of Hollywood and its content creators, it's annoying to me. It is. However, there is something more annoying that is going on with movies today. And look, I want to be clear. I love movies. I love film. I always will, even if it's woke, even if it's nonsense, even if it's all of those things. I like sitting down and watching a good movie. So we're going to watch the trailer real quick, and we're going to discuss it afterwards.
This was my father's kingdom, a place of fairness. But the Queen changed everything.
Take him away!
Your Majesty,
What did you say?
the people need some kindness.
You know, I really don't remember you being this opinionated. Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all?
Famed is thy beauty, Majesty. But a lovely maiden I now behold.
I look at you, and I just want to be the fairest of them all.
The Queen is evil. You must flee into the woods.
My parents always said this forest was a magical place. Hello? Is there anybody here?
It's a human.
What did you think I was?
Nothing.
Ghost.
You'll be safe from the Queen here.
The Queen stole everything from all of us. I'm gonna need your help. It's time to restore our kingdom.
Waiting on a wish, holding out for someday, hoping somehow, someway, there comes.
Right there is what we are talking about. Right here.
Hoping somehow, someway,
A classic story. A classic story.
there comes a miracle.
Find Snow White.
I close my eyes and see the girl I meant to
This is our kingdom, and now we're here to take it back.
You were saying.
I'm sorry, my dear. Did I frighten you?
Now, why did I make you sit through that? Why did I make you sit through that preposterous trailer? Because it's not the terrible CGI, and it's not the wokeness. It is the classic story aspect, okay? There's a reason why the story of Snow White has endured since 1812. 1812 is when the Brothers Grimm wrote the story of Snow White. And it is because there are certain archetypal stories involved in this. Number one, the greedy, the angry, the jealous stepmother. How can you have the jealous stepmother of Snow White's beauty when the stepmother is better looking than Snow White? Gal Gadot, absolutely gorgeous. That doesn't work. I don't know if you noticed, there doesn't really seem to be a prince involved in this. There doesn't really seem to be any sort of strong male character involved in this. And that's the problem I have. It's because when you take classic IP, classic intellectual property, like Snow White, or they do this every couple of years with Romeo and Juliet, where they make Juliet trans for some reason, or whatever. The problem in lies is that if you don't exist in the culture war, if you don't exist in the realm in which we operate, you would go take your kids to see Snow White because you think you're going to see the 1937 cartoon adaptation. But that's not what this movie is. You can't take a classic story and just sort of replace little parts of it here, there, and everywhere. Because whether it was woke or not, whether it was the fact that they straight up changed part of the story from her face was white as snow to she's named Snow White because she was born during a snowstorm, that's an actual quote from the movie. When you just take little bits and pieces out of a story, it doesn't seem to make a whole hell of a lot of sense. This movie has been absolutely panned by everyone who sees it. Now, why am I talking? Who gives a crap about Snow White? Who cares? I'm going to tell you why. Why it matters. It matters because you and I had certain parts of our childhood that we remember. And it really doesn't matter how old you are. Movies like this have been around basically the entire time we've been alive. It matters because it is little by little, ever so slowly, altering the reality in which your children get to grow up in. My favorite Disney movie is Aladdin. I watch it to this day. I love that movie. Great movie. Love it. Do you know if you watch Aladdin on Disney Plus today, they've edited out certain parts of the movie to be more culturally sensitive to the times? That's troublesome. It's bothersome. Because when I watched Aladdin as a kid, and I heard the line, "He's got slaves," in the Prince Ali song, that didn't contribute to systemic racism in America. It turns out the movie is not even American. The movie's Indian. And it turns out that would somehow alter the reality that America is the only place in the world that's ever had slavery. Meanwhile, you can watch open-air slave auctions going on YouTube right now in Libya. If you really want to. I don't want Disney to fail. I don't. I really, really don't. I don't want shows like Saturday Night Live to go under. I don't. Shows like The Tonight Show, cultural landmarks in American culture, really. I want them to be better. I want them to produce the kind of content that we all grew up on, the wholesome stuff. I hope that Bob Iger over at Disney understands that most of us don't want this stuff to go away. We just want it to go back to the way it was. You don't think I would love to take my niece to go see a good version of Snow White? I would love that. But I would never take her to see this. Why? Because it's not the story we grew up with. And it turns out, in order for there to be a story that lasts, I don't know, well, what are we at now? 213 years? Maybe it had some value. I brought it up before. They do this with Romeo and Juliet every couple of years, where like they don't let Juliet die or something, or she's not saved by Romeo. They do this every year, and it ties into what we've been talking about over the course of the last several weeks here with the implosion of the liberal order. Why? Because there's an arrogance to it. There's an arrogance to look at something like Snow White that's 220 years old. Romeo and Juliet, that's more than 400 years old. The Constitution, written 250 years ago. The principles and the ideas and documents like the Magna Carta. There is some sort of arrogance on the American left to think that you know better. You don't. You're not smarter than the Brothers Grimm. You're not a better writer than Shakespeare. You're not more of an intellect than those who wrote the Federalist Papers. The problem with the American left is that they think the world started spinning the minute they popped out. And it's what gives them the sort of arrogance to say, sure, we have a 27% approval rating, but we're not wrong. You're wrong. Sure, we just lost an election in every possible way one can lose an election, but we're not wrong. There is I've been saying, I brought this up several times on this show before. There is a sort of cultural shift happening away from this sort of nonsense. And I'm very happy that it's happening because I want classic stories to go back to the way they were. I want them to go back to a time where you could just take your kids to the movies and just enjoy it. Sure, did all of these movies have jokes that went directly over kids' heads so the parents could laugh also? 1,000%. And were they possibly a bit irreverent? Oh, yeah. You don't think that happens in TV and film throughout the years? For example, SpongeBob. I'm sure all of your kids grew up watching SpongeBob. There are so many sexual innuendos in that. And it's not to indoctrinate the kids. It's to make the parents laugh. It's to make the parents laugh who are forced to watch it. For example, how many people, let's put the live chat up on the screen. How many of your kids watched SpongeBob growing up? How many of your kids watched SpongeBob growing up? Let's see. Let's get the live chat up there. I know I watched it. Really, Mike Crispy's calling me right now? Love SpongeBob. You ever notice that Mr. Krabs lives in Bikini Bottom? It's just a joke. You ever notice that? Dawn says, mine, and she still does at 28. That's really funny. That's really funny. There were always jokes for adults in it. And it wasn't lecturing. They were just good stories. There were so many of them, and I just wish we could go back to when movies and films were just good. A friend of mine works in the movie industry, and I told them, these movies aren't bombing because they're woke. They're not bombing because of this or that. They're bombing because they suck. Because people don't want to be lectured to. You remember Top Gun? The new one that came out. Huge box office success. Huge box office. You know why? Because it was just a good movie. Is Tom Cruise a weirdo? 1,000%. He's definitely a weirdo. But they were just good movies. It's just a good movie. And I miss being able to just go to the movie. Well, not that anybody goes to movie theaters anymore because movies cost $100 to go see. But they were just good. And I wish we could go back to a time when those sorts of things happened. I just do. I could talk about Snow White all day long and everything that gone wrong with it. But we do have more stories that I want to make sure that I get to today. So, guys, make sure you're hitting the thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place before we keep rocking and rolling. Mike Lindell.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 6-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Guys, head on over to MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD, for up to 80% off everything on the website. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. I'm getting... Oh, what the hell? Oh, what happened here? There we go. Hit the wrong button. Sorry, I'm getting an annoying text message right now. I'm getting yelled at. So let's move on. So obviously, the big story that's been coming out over the last several days is Donald Trump taking down the Department of Education and what he's actually able to do. What is Donald Trump actually able to do? Because many people have been trying to figure out the difference between the executive order, and the Department of Education was created by an executive order, and the how would you say it? The act of Congress that was subsequently followed in the 90s. What Donald Trump has the power to do, I don't believe he's got the power to get rid of it totally. What I think he has the power to do is reallocate funds in a way such that many of these departments become de facto extinct. That's what I think he has the power to be able to do. Truthfully, I think that's what he's going to do when it comes to the Department of Education. For example, like Donald Trump talked about the university, all the main universities in colleges. He quarreled with the governor of Maine on allowing men in women's sports in the state of Maine. And Donald Trump straight up said, all right, good, then I will see you in court. Well, it turns out, based on the allocation of funds, Donald Trump was able to get Maine universities to cave to Trump's demand that he protects women in sports. Absolutely shitting all over the governor, who there's going to be a new governor race this year in the state of Maine. On Wednesday, the Department of Agriculture announced that the University of Maine system has agreed to comply with Donald Trump's executive order to keep biological men out of women's sports. Last week, the network of 8 public universities was subject to a temporary pause in funding from the USDA for allowing men to compete in girls' sports. The funding was reinstated a few days later, according to USDA, because the United Maine Schools, I guess, what is that? UMS? The University of Maine system, is in full compliance with Trump's executive order. The USDA said in an announcement after the United States Department of Agriculture initiated a Title IX complaint review regarding federal funding. The University of Maine system, UMaine, has clearly communicated its compliance with the Title IX requirement. The Chancellor, Daniel Malloy, told Fox News in a statement that the system is relieved to have come to an understanding with the USDA, writing. The University of Maine system has always maintained its compliance with state and federal laws and with NCAA laws, which the Department of Agriculture also affirmed in a press release today. According to the USDA, the agency has provided over $100 million to the University of Maine system in recent years. And in fiscal year 2024 alone, the USDA granted nearly $30 million in funding to the schools in Maine. After the NCAA changed its gender eligibility policy to prohibit men from competing in women's sports, President Trump pledged during a meeting with the GOP governors at the White House on February 20th to cut all federal funding from Maine if it continued to allow the practice. The Democratic governor, Janet Mills, threatened legal action against the Trump administration if it would help money from the state. So what happened? It turns out the state complied. It turns out the state just said, boom, we're done. All right, we're here. That's not the only university that Donald Trump has considered pulling funding for. He's also pulling a whole boatload of money from the University of Pennsylvania.
It is interesting. You hear always return power back to the states. States have the power. Local governments have the power largely over education and control some 90% of the funding. And the polling on this is actually a majority of Americans oppose gutting the Department of Education. But as you said, it's still very popular with the Republican base.
Yeah, it's extremely popular with the Republican base. If you ever attended a Trump rally, he would go on stage and say this, and the crowd would really go wild. This is something that the MAGA base and some of the far right Republicans have really zeroed in on because of this idea that there is, DEI promoting or racial inequality promoting within the school system, putting one group of people over another, really trying to target that. But already, John, I would say that the administration has already moved to change the culture at schools so much. We know just yesterday that they stripped Pennsylvania University $175 million for them continuing to have a transgender swimmer compete at that school. We know that today Columbia University has to respond to the White House, who has demanded they overhaul their own culture, or else lose $400 million in federal spending. And of course, we've seen over the couple of days that they have really been increasing their targeting of pro-Palestinian protesters who are here on student visas. And so already the culture at these schools, both at higher education and lower education, are continuing to change. But I think this will be the most full-scale scale that they've done. Of course, it's going to be, susceptible to legal challenges. But I think what we've seen over the last few days with USAID and all these kind of other agencies that the administration has moved to shutter, even if a district judge says, listen, you got to bring all these people back, it's been shown that it's difficult to claw these things back and get people back hired when they could be hired in a really unstable environment because you don't know which court is going to say what.
I'm sorry, you've got to change your culture, but it turns out you have to comply with federal law. Not my problem, lady. Not my problem at all. It's so funny because watching these Democrats continue to bitch and moan about, oh, we're changing the norms. No, we're not. We're just making things back to normal again. We're just taking things back to normal again. We're just making things the way they used to be. That's it. We're not asking a lot here. Not asking a lot whatsoever. Guys, before we keep moving and grooving, because we're going to have some fun at the expense of Tim Walz in just a second because he's an idiot. I mean, look, it's not that Tim Walz might, he's just dumb. He's just really, really stupid. And he's probably one of the most fake people I've ever seen in my entire life. Before we get to that, guys, head on over to lfatv.us. That's lfatv.us. That's your home base, your mothership, your landing pad for all things LFA-TV related. Check out the LFA-TV store. And while you guys are there, consider becoming a monthly donor over at lfatv.us. That's lfatv.us. So Tim Walz, the creep from Minnesota, has some choice words for us here on the right. You see, he thinks he is under this very odd impression that the reason why Republicans are so nasty to him is because, I don't know, they're worried he can beat us up. This is very strange. Check this out.
Have they figured it out that the identity piece of this is more important than the actual substance behind it?
Well, they've been doing it for decades. I mean, we've saw the welfare queens. They've seen the Southern strategy. We've seen it over and over. It's an old playbook, and we're as dumb as we want to be that we allow them to do this with CRT and ESG and DEI and every three-letter word.
And then they demonize people.
Yeah, demonize, and they weaponize grievance. They other people. They talk down to people, past people. They humiliate people. They weaponize difficult issues. But the bottom line is, and I think it goes back to what we began with, is, and I applaud you for this, is we cannot continue to be on the defense reacting to this. We've got to go on the offense. We got to meet people where they are. But I also think this, and this is where, this is part of the conversation I'm trying to have, is you got to respect people you disagree with, and you can't just dismiss people. This
How
notion
do you fight it?
This notion
I think
of
I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they want to do it. I know I can run them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
No, but it's a natural reaction. I think it's one of the reasons we're losing so many men. And again, it's multi-ethnic. It's not just white men. We're losing them. We're losing them to these guys online. We're losing them to people that I'm bringing on this podcast as well. That's why I brought.
These are bad guys, though. These are bad guys.
But they exist, and we could deny they exist. They exist. Not only they exist, they persist, and they're actually influencing young kids every single day.
How do we push some of those guys back under a rock?
I think we have to first understand what their motivations are. I think we have to understand what they're actually doing. And
you don't
I think
that's racism and misogyny?
I think there's a lot of that, but I don't think it's exclusively that. When you talk to a guy like Steve Bannon, he talks about working folks, and he talks about how we hollowed out the industrial core of this country. I understand that. But so we can dismiss the notion of election denialism. We could completely dismiss what he did on January 6th, but I don't think you can dismiss what he's saying. Reminds me a lot of what Bernie Sanders was saying. Reminds me a lot of what Democrats said 20, 30 years ago.
Wow. Look at that. Newsom actually understands. He actually starts to think a little. But that's not the point I want to focus on. Tim Walz. You want to prove how tough you are by fighting us in a WWE match? Who's going to tell Tim Walz that WWE isn't real? It's staged. It's a script. They know who's going to win beforehand. So even when this fat, bald piece of shit wants to challenge us to a fight, he wants to challenge us to a staged competition. I tell you what, Gavin Newsom, this will be the clip for the day. Why don't you rent out the Staples Center and I'll fight Tim Walz? For real. Shit, I could beat the shit out of Tim Walz if I had the flu. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying. And of course, Donald Trump was not going to let that one go.
Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz, "I think I could kick most of their ass."
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. Yeah, I mean, he's a loser. He lost an election. He played a part. You know, usually a vice president doesn't play a part, they say. I think Tim played a part. I think he was so bad that he hurt her. But she hurt herself, and Joe hurt them both. They didn't have a great group, but I would probably put him at the bottom of the group.
Not a chance Donald Trump was ever going to let that one slide. I just find it funny that Tim Walz is like, oh, let's show how tough I am in a WWE match. It's not real, Tim. It's not real, my friend. Remember when he tried to show how much of a man he was by changing a clean oil filter on like some truck from the 60s? Or when he pretended to go duck hunting? No tough guy waves like this, okay? Nobody does this. Like Jesse Waters says, no man eats soup in public, waves with two hands, or drinks from a straw in public. Which was just funny to watch. Watch it. I also find that clip very funny because I think it's hilarious watching Gavin Newsom attempt to tact to the middle, despite being the absolute radical that we know he is. I think it's hilarious. I enjoy every single second of it. You know what else I enjoy? And like I said, some people don't agree with this sort of thing, whether it was Charlie Kirk going on Gavin Newsom's podcast. I supported it wholeheartedly, 100%. I would love to go on that show. 1,000% I would love to go on it. To make him look like the buffoon he is. Because when we engage with some of these people, we have the opportunity to make them look silly. To make them out to be the fools in which they are. Which then gets cut up into clips, which then gets circulated around the internet, which is our space to win. That's them playing us on our home turf. Remember when Ron DeSantis debated Gavin Newsom on Fox News? That was still on unfriendly territory. Now, obviously, Sean Hannity did the moderating of that debate, and it didn't go very well for Gavin Newsom, but it still has that same sort of constraints, because I don't like debates. I like conversations. I like the back and forth, the chit-chat, whether it's people debating ideas or not. I like what Charlie Kirk does when he goes to college campuses and sits there and makes people look stupid, like he does here on some idiot on the Department of Education.
Should get rid of the Department of Education. It's not the Department of Education, it's the Department of Administrators. And this is what's very important. This is not a war on teachers. There are 11 million people in America that are in government, that are in jobs, in government, taxpayer funded, in education. If you were to guess, how many would you say are teachers?
30%?
Yeah, so that's almost correct. You're right. Okay. So about 7 million, about 6.7 million of the 11 million are administrators. And the people, most of our education money goes towards paper pushers, career counselors, people that fill in paperwork unnecessarily. We're not even supporting the teachers on the front line. So that's the biggest problem, is we have become an administrative-heavy education model. And what has that meant for our kids? Since the advent of Department of Education, as you agree, standards have gone down, literacy has gone down, math and reading has gone down. In fact, most kids in public education, I want you guys to think about this, in high school, have not read an entire book cover to cover.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that? Yeah. And I know that when parents hear that, it's so shocking. Most kids, when they are by a junior or senior in school, have not read, they'll read snippets. You guys know that. They have readers, right? A chapter of this. They have not read an entire book cover to cover. Let me go to my second argument why I think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's constitutional or in the role of government to get involved in the most intimate thing, which is education. And this is why. I think our view of education is wrong. You guys look at education probably because you've been taught as just, hey, get here so you can get a job. In the ideal sense, education should be about the growth of the soul and should be about the nurturing of good citizens, which is completely different than just career preparation. The view I have of education, which is what the founders had, which only very few people have, is that you guys should be here to read really old good books, to understand ancient philosophy, to become a well-rounded citizen of what is good, true, and beautiful, and then you could do any job once you graduate. That the hyper-specialization of our education system has been dreadful. But let me get to the Constitution, and I'd love to get your response. Constitutionally, I think we have made too many exceptions of the government should do this, the government should do that. If we look at Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, it enumerates 17 things that government can do. Education federally is not one of them. And it doesn't even do it well. And I think it's led to this bloat of federal agencies that shouldn't exist.
The bloat of federal agencies that shouldn't exist. He's absolutely correct there. A cogent argument, an accurate argument, one that has nothing to do with hurting kids. I just want things to get a little bit better because I'm just going to throw this out there. Let's say you were, I don't know, educated in modern social studies about American history. You might end up like Joy Reid. You might end up like Joy Reid, who thinks America fought Canada in the War of 1812. Yeah. And before I show you this clip of absurdity, because that's exactly what it is, an absolutely absurd clip, I really want to thank Elon Musk for buying X, because if it wasn't for Elon Musk, we would not get clips like this one, because nobody would actually watch Don Lemon's show. Nobody would watch that shit. And we wouldn't be able to hear Joy Reid being, somehow Joy Reid, not on television, got to be more Joy Reid. She went full Joy Reid, and you never go full Joy Reid.
Grampy Trump, let's talk. Let's talk. First of all, you can't make Canada the 51st state without going to war with them. And let me explain how that happened, how that worked out the last time we tried to go to war with Canada. They burned the White House to the ground in 1814 and won the war. Canada beat us in the War of 1812. They probably liked their chances against us. We're not going to beat them in a war because we have never been able to do that. You'd have to occupy a country that is equivalent of the size of the United States, in which the top 2/3 of it is uninhabited, frozen forest land that touches the Arctic. You know how that worked out when the Nazis tried that with Russia, which is the equivalent of Canada on that part of the world? We gonna lose. We don't have enough troops to occupy. They are a country of 39 million people who have about as many guns per capita as we do.
I don't even know where to begin. I don't know how a person could be that wrong that often in that short a period of time. First off, Joy Reid, you dumbass. The United States and Great Britain fought the War of 1812, you dithering idiot. A cursory Google search could have shown you that one, but you're a dumbass. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to roll the dice here and say that the United States military has gotten a little bit more advanced since 1814. Number three, and I can't even, Canada is like Russia? What the hell does that even mean? Also, Joy Reid, Canada has 39 million people. We have 10 times that. How could you be that wrong that quickly? That many times. She went to Harvard. Harvard. Yes. Why am I paying for that education? I mean, I am actually impressed. I am genuinely impressed at how stupid that woman is. I mean, can you imagine being that dumb on television and still feeling like you've been slighted somehow by the American public? What a dipshit. And then the out-of-work lesbian, Don Lemon, sitting there yucking it. Yeah, Don, why don't you go back to allegedly sexually assaulting men in Sag Harbor? Allegedly. Allegedly. I wouldn't foil the court documents or anything. Allegedly. Allegedly. But Don Lemon, another victim of the evil American system. So much so, did you guys know this? Did you guys know this? Did you know that while Don Lemon was at CNN, he was sexually assaulted by women? Yeah, we're going to play that for you in just 1 second. Before we do that, guys, Old Glory Bank.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
Guys, have you ever wanted to own part of a bank? Well, you can do that by investing in own.oldglorybank.com. That's own.oldglorybank.com. Guys, hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. Let's keep rocking. Let's keep rolling here on this Friday, March 21st. Giddy up. Day off tomorrow. Day off the next day. Oh, yeah. Let's go. So, as I said, guys, don't forget to stick around for the very end of the show today. We're going to introduce a new segment called FAFO on Fridays. F around and find out Fridays. We're all going to laugh together. But before we do that, we've got to make sure that we got to make sure that we follow the mantra of believe all women. Believe all women. Believe even people that are kind of like women. Like Don Lemon, who went on Bill Maher's show and said that while he was at CNN, he was sexually assaulted by female staffers. Guys, I hope you're sitting down for this one.
I would. I've been harassed by women and men in the work, and some things are not even. It's ridiculous. Now look,
tell us. I'm very interested.
There are some things that
no. I'm interested in this.
There are some things that are really egregious, right? And not everything is Harvey Weinstein level. And
that's rape.
And then some of that's a whole different story. I'm not talking about that, and I'm not saying it makes it right, but. I remember when I was in Atlanta and was in the cafeteria, commissary, whatever.
At CNN?
At CNN. And this young lady, tweaked my nipples and said, "Oh, it's cold in here." And I said, "Okay, you realize if I did that, they'd be walking me out the door right now." But I didn't care. I didn't go to HR. I didn't say anything because I was just like, it's a double standard.
Good
it's
for
fine.
you.
Yeah, it's a bit. And also, but I've never told this story as well. Someone who I worked with also harassed me at CNN, and I never went to management. First of all, I was so
a man
new
or
there.
a woman?
A woman. And she knew I was gay. And it was just bizarre. She was going through a divorce. It was just weird. And I never went to management. First of all, I thought like, okay, they may find a way to get rid of me because if I tell this story, I don't know if they're going to believe me or not. But then she was so mean to me after that. I was like, I should have told the story. But yeah, I've been harassed by men and women.
But what constituted this harassment? Like what did physically, like in the office, like come in and twirl for me, Don?
It wasn't a twirl for me, but it was not in the office. But yeah, that's all. I won't go that far.
So you had to be with her in certain business occasions, but outside the office, like at a cocktail party.
Maybe.
Places like that. No, I know, because like in our business and media, there's a lot of cocktail parties. There's a lot of assholes.
A lot of cocktail parties. And remember, this was a while ago and there was not Uber and anything like that. And if you are in Atlanta, their taxis aren't available. And so, you say, hey, I'm going to, we've had a couple of drinks and do you mind if I or whatever? No, don't go home. Stay in the guest room, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He said that. He said that out loud. Now, just in case anybody has forgotten, Don Lemon, remember guys, Don Lemon is a victim. He is a victim of both white America, homophobic America, apparently women who routinely sexually assault him while he's at work. Not sure if I believe that first story, but whatever. Let us not forget, let's go into the way back machine. To New Year's Eve, 2017. Now, if America was homophobic, if America was racist, If everyone was out to get Don Lemon, do you think he would have been fired after being visibly, utterly, completely shit-faced live on air on New Year's Eve?
Don Brooke.
Hi guys.
Hola.
Happy almost New Year.
Hi. Oh boy.
We're at the Spotted Cat. The time has almost arrived.
Okay, tell them what's going to happen. I'm going to get something.
So we've invited our new friend Chris over, and Chris clearly has much ink. And the decision all night has been, should it be a tattoo or a piercing? I mean, what are you thinking? The people want to know what crazy, silly.
Let me ask. Kathy, I think Kathy Anderson might steer me wrong. Kathy, what should I do?
Nipple, 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 nipple.
No, Don.
I love you, Kathy.
No.
I love you.
You don't want to hear
I mean,
my
I
other
love
do
you
it,
too, but we really don't need to see what's about to happen here.
No, Don.
I love you, Don. No,
All right.
no. Keep it closed.
All right.
Keep it closed.
All right.
I love you more, Don.
So listen, since I promised, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Anderson. That was good. The decision is, Chris.
I'm thinking ear. Or something more fun, but ear's cool.
Okay.
Ear's cool.
Let's do it. Hang on. Tell him what we have to do first. We had to be in a sterile place.
Can we please not give him shots, by the way?
And then everything's pre-sterilized, ready to go. So we're good.
Okay, I'm cutting you off after this one. Should I cut him off?
Is this going to hurt?
It's not going to hurt me. You'll be fine.
This is seriously about to happen.
Don't get blood on my jacket.
Do you need to hold my hands?
Yeah. If this hurts,
I mean, I think that if they had it out for Don Lemon, they might have fired him when he suggested some random guy pierce his nipple live on New Year's Eve while, I want to make it clear, blatantly drunk. I don't know. But let's not forget, Don Lemon is a victim, everyone. Don Lemon's a victim. Don Lemon is a victim of America. Makes it hard to take it that even remotely seriously. Makes it hard to take it seriously. Guys, before we keep rocking and rolling, hit the thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. We're going to have ourselves a little bit of fun in a minute with FAFO Fridays. A video of one of the dumbest people I've ever seen. Before we get to that, guys, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. That is the best way to support this program, this movement, and everything we've got going on over here. Also, we have a giant sale going on. If you go all the way to the top, click that sale button. There's a bunch of stuff there, 50% off. And anybody who gets anything today, I will send you a free Loud Majority USA decal in the mail. Giddy up. Let's go. So, it's loudmajorityusa.com, loudmajorityusa.com. So, let's have some fun. We're going to do this together. I want to show you, there's a pandemic going on in this country right now, an absolute pandemic of obnoxious, annoying, liberal, white women who think they can just start yelling at people on trains, yelling at people in the street, and nothing's ever going to happen to them. Now, obviously, I would never suggest that something should happen to them, but sometimes Sir Isaac Newton just takes the wheel. And it turns out great things tend to happen. So we're gonna watch this together, and we're gonna laugh because why the hell not? You ready for this? So some kid, some young guy, looks like he's in his 20s, riding on a New York City subway and is accosted by an annoying, fat, liberal, white woman. And as he gets off the train, she chases after him. And then, turns out gravity took the wheel. So let's watch this together.
That's why he won. Because people like you. That's why he won. That is why he won. Because of people like you need to stop and let him live.
Bro, just like, bro, chill, bro.
You're okay with that? He's a racist. I'm so okay. How can I be racist, bro? I'm so okay with it.
If you fucking voted for Trump, you're a racist.
Leave him alone.
He's a racist.
How can I be racist?
No, he's not. Leave him alone.
Doesn't watch the news.
You realize he was the Democrat.
I'm highly educated.
Oh, are you? Then why are you wearing that hat?
Everything is going up for I don't know how long. The Democrats have been running New York since who knows how long. But then Trump comes in and just takes over.
Alright, well, this is my stuff. I hope you enjoy the hat.
Oh, she tried to attack her. She just. Oh, shit.
Bing bong. Enjoy that, everybody. Turns out when you want to chase after somebody, you shouldn't have really weak ankles and fat ass calves that make you a little lopsided while trying to run. Look, I hope she left with all of her teeth. Sort of. Guys, it's 2 o'clock. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys back live on Monday. Hit the thumbs up button on the way out the door. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Stay loud.